everyone, and welcome to another episode of HomeTech. I'm Seth Johnson, and I am joined, as usual, by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Seth. How are you?
So far, so good. What are we going to talk about?
It's been a slow week.
Because nothing's happened this week.
I've got no baby to announce, so I got that going on.
Still in baby watch.
Yeah, indeed. We're on pins and needles here. It's we're right down to the finish line. We're sitting here recording like we typically do on a Tuesday night. My wife's due date is Thursday, so 2 short days from now, and so we're just kind of anxiously waiting and no announcements yet. But just want to mention that again. We're going to be pretty busy with that. So I think, Seth, there may be a week off in my future here of home tech recording, and hopefully our listeners will give me a break for a newborn.
Oh, I'm sure they will, and I'm going to be kind of doing the same thing to you later in the year anyway. So
yeah, that's right. So anyways, we do have a few news stories here to touch on. We wanted to sit down and chat tonight. No guests lined up. It's just going to be you and me. And we're going to kick it off here. We've actually got a little bit of listener feedback that we wanted to touch on, Seth. And this was an email that came your way regarding possibly some options looking into a universal type of remote for a TV system.
Yeah, I got an email from a listener, Kevin M. I'm not going to use his full name on air, but needless to say, he had some follow-up about the Savant remote issues that I were having when I was testing out the remote in Best Buy. He made mention that the Siri remote works very much the same way as the Savant remote, in that you have to press and hold the button down and talk into the Siri remote. This is the new Siri remote on the new Apple TV.
Right.
Right. I completely forgot about that. It's true. You have to do that. But what was tripping me up was the actual interface on the remote kind of like kept spinning after you let go of the button. So basically what they probably could do is make that, spinning thing go away a lot faster, and it would be less confusing. So I press the button, it pops up with a little spinning wheel. I let go, the spinning wheel goes away.
Right. Well, yeah, and let's give a little context in case anybody missed that conversation. I know we were talking about the Savant remote, and I agreed with you. I think that the voice control functionality on there tripped me up a little bit at first, in that you have to, when you hold the Savant remote to issue a voice command, you have to push and then hold on the microphone button in order to issue that voice command. And I didn't realize it actually until you had pointed it out to me, but I just hadn't connected the dots. I think that part of the reason I was getting tripped up on that is that I do use Siri on my iPhone on a fairly regular basis, and with that implementation, you kind of push and hold, and then the phone vibrates and it makes a little chime and gives you a visual indication that you can issue that voice command. And so those are kind of inconsistent in the sense that one you have to push and hold, and the other you don't. So that was what we were the context of the conversation. And Kevin, who emailed in with some questions about different options for a handheld remote that might be good for controlling his TV, was kind enough to point out something that we didn't realize, which is that, like you said, the Siri remote on the new Apple TV has that same functionality. So it is consistent with the Savant remote in the sense that you have to push and hold in order to issue that command. And so there's a little bit of inconsistency there, and I think your point is valid, though. On that Savant remote, we're getting a little bit nuanced, but I've noticed the same thing. I think you're dead on with that, is that when I first picked it up and I would push, and then I would see that little visual indication that seemed to indicate it was ready to receive a voice command, and that wheel was spinning. I kind of naturally wanted to let go of the button and then issue the voice command when in fact I needed to hold it. And so I think it's just one of those little things that I don't know that Savant necessarily needs to fix. I think it may just be a thing in the implementation that end users will get used to. But like you mentioned on last week's show, I do think that Savant would probably have the ability to go in and fix that if they did decide that was necessary. I think for the most part, though, users will just kind of get used to it over time.
Right. Yeah. I think it's something that's easily fixed, and they're smart enough they can pull it off.
I agree. But let's get into his inquiry here, because I thought this was interesting, and he was talking about he says he's looking for a universal remote. He says, I just listened to episode 122 and the mention of the Savant remote. I have a Harmony Home Control, which does quite a few things, but it is not reliable at all. So I thought that was interesting. He's not happy with the Harmony Home. I know, Seth, you and I have talked about this quite a bit on the show. I don't have a ton of direct experience personally with the Harmony Home products. I do know that in the past, they kind of had a bad reputation for reliability, but by and large, what I've heard lately is that they've gotten a lot better, and it just sounds like that's not consistent with Kevin's experience. And then, he mentions just thinking that possibly the Savant remote is not quite ready. He's looking for a DIY remote that he can use to control different devices, and says currently he doesn't have the budget to pay a home technology professional to come in and implement one for him. So kind of a tough quandary, I would say. I mean, if you're not into the Harmony Home and that's not doing a good job for you, and the Savant remote for whatever reason isn't appealing to you, it's tough. There's not a ton of options in that DIY realm out there, and I would say those two are two of the better ones that I can think of. I don't know. What about you, Seth? Yeah,
we were talking about this in the pre-show. Like, maybe you can get a universal remote, and well, no, they don't really have DIY product. I don't know. This is a tough one, and usually what we hear back from people who are in the DIY space is that Harmony remote is the way to go. I don't know. I mean, a Savant remote may have a couple bugs that need to be worked out here and there. I'm really kind of curious as to what is failing a little bit more. And I'll reach back out to Kevin and talk to him and find out a little bit more about his setup and what he's looking to try and accomplish. But, all I can think of was maybe Neo, whenever that, ships, would be maybe a good one to test out. But I don't know. I would think spending the $150 on the Harmony remote, or what do you say, $150 on the
$250? Yeah,
believe. So that's the ultimate.
Yeah.
He's dropped some coin on it already. I might, if it were me, I might try and figure out a way to make that more reliable. Maybe it's a networking issue. Maybe I don't know. It maybe. You and I have run into like IR placement issues and code base issues and that kind of thing. Like if the IR codes are just a hair off, the repeat counts are off, all that kind of thing, that would all cause a problem. So maybe it's something like that can be tweaked on the remote itself and fixed. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd like anybody listening, if you've got a suggestion for Kevin, to also, tweet at us or shoot us an email through the feedback form at HomeTech.fm/feedback. Let us know if you have something that you think works a little bit better than the Harmony out there.
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage people to do that. I think the Neo remote is one that is definitely worth paying attention to, Kevin. And if you're not familiar with that one, you can go to HomeTech.fm/shows/55. So this is going back quite a ways. March 16th, 2015. I'm looking right now is when we put that out. So it's been a long time, and I really loved the story behind Neo, and I think it's a beautiful looking remote, and I'm really pulling for them. But man, just starting to wonder if they're going to be able to get that thing shipped. But I think that would be one to take a look at maybe in the future. But I agree with you, Seth. I think that's a good suggestion, is to take a harder look at what might be causing some of those reliability issues and try to come at it from that angle for now. But let's move on here. We've got one or two more follow-up type stories here that we want to touch on. And the second one it's an older article, old being, a couple of weeks, so we're not talking super old, but this was an Engadget piece that kind of came up in a conversation in passing. I think we touched on this, and it was about this trend that we're starting to see with builders. KB Home is mentioned specifically in this article, implementing smart home technology using HomeKit in this example. And so a really interesting conversation on a lot of different levels, and I think for end users, obviously very exciting that the technology is evolving to this level that it is becoming closer to a mainstream kind of standard feature that you might get if you go buy a home from KB Home or any one of these other big production builders. But I think also, to me as a home technology professional, which I know a lot of our listeners are, there's also a very interesting aspect to the story in terms of of thinking about what the implications are here for home technology professionals if the technology is evolving to this level where builders can just sort of go out and do it themselves. Where does that leave us as an industry, and how can we continue to add value to that equation?
Right, that's a good point. Also, to take a look at this is more follow up back from the Apple keynote when I think it was Tim Cook was on stage saying that home builders were building in HomeKit into their homes. So this is, we were all kind of sitting around scratching our head. What does that even mean? And this is how they're doing that. So they're taking things like, a Nest thermostat and having that installed. There are some products made by Whirlpool, GE, Honeywell that all have deals in place with these bigger, larger national home builders. And when they have something that is, HomeKit compatible, they can put it into the house. And for the builder, it's more of a marketing thing for them. They can say that they are building smart homes now, which, by and large, I don't really have a problem with them saying that, because all of this stuff, if it all talks together and works, if you have, a Lutron Caseta system installed and you say good night, hey Siri, good night, or whatever, do the good night scene, and it shuts everything off. That's an automated home. That's kind of what you and I have been doing for the last, 10 years or so.
Yeah, definitely. And this, this ties into a story that we're going to touch on here in a little bit in the episode. We got a couple of CEDIA related stories, and that's our big trade show that's not, barely more than a month away from us at this point, which is hard to believe. And we're going to touch on that. I think what I want to mention right now in the context of this specific story is that this trend is real, and it's definitely something that I think is exciting, but is a threat as well, if we're honest, to a lot of traditional integrators who or home tech pros who may not be, I guess, paying attention or understanding that really the stuff is evolving in a way that is significant. And it really is going to leave the home technology profession in a space where we have to figure out a different way. And I think that we can. I think that there are a lot of different ways we can come at that equation, and most of them obviously revolve around a more service-based pricing model and really kind of consultative approach and providing that level of white glove service and turnkey implementation. But obviously that's a very different model from the way that we've been doing business now for decades. So I think it is an interesting story, and I know personally that it is something I'm thinking about every day. We're getting, into conversations with developers who are, the other day I got in a quick conversation with a developer who's trying to figure out how to implement smart home technology in an apartment development that they were doing, which is not an environment that we typically will look at doing our sort of systems in. And, I had to say, really, HomeKit is something you might want to take a hard look at, because a big majority of your renters are going to have an iPhone in their pocket. And as soon as iOS 10 comes out, every single one of them is going to have the ability to control a HomeKit home from their iPhone with no additional apps needed or no hubs or additional hardware beyond, HomeKit compatible thermostat or whatever it is, dishwasher, washing machine, HVAC system, you name it. So it's really interesting, a fascinating conversation from my opinion.
Yeah, it is significant. And I think that, we talk about this every week, it seems like. It is on your radar. It is on our listeners' radar. But I'd say for the vast majority of the integrators out there going to CEDIA, or even who don't even show up to CEDIA, I don't think this is even on their peripheral vision. Like, this is not something that they see coming up. They know that Apple has HomeKit. They may have heard that. They may have seen a story on CE Pro. They may have had a customer ask if what they're putting in is going to be HomeKit compatible. But I'd say the vast majority of them don't know that this is coming down the road. And come October, 50% of their clients will have a HomeKit controller in their hands.
Right.
So this will be a big sea change, I think, for quite a few dealers that are out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, I think this just dovetails too nicely, not to jump into a story here that we want to touch on tonight, and that's not to be too self-promotional, but an article I put up on residentialsystems.com, the blog that I do there a couple times a month, and that is thoughts that I shared about, last week, Seth, you and I had a conversation about CEDIA announcing the product finalists for the 2016 Best New Product Award. And one of the reasons that we were talking about that, and one of the things we thought was interesting, was the inclusion of very consumer-focused DIY type of products like Amazon Alexa and the Eero Wi-Fi system, and there was a few other ones in there. And I think it calls to mind conversations that I've heard in the last couple of years in particular where this is anecdotal, obviously, but I've just heard murmurings and people kind of complaining under their breath that there's a little bit too much DIY going on the CEDIA show floor, and the DIY products like that don't really have a place at CEDIA. And I just, quite frankly, could not disagree more with that sentiment. I just think that this is clearly the way the industry is evolving right now. And I think that CEDIA's number one job, really, above anything else, is to protect the business interests of its members. And I think that as an industry, obviously, we've got to evolve to that new reality. And I can't think of a better place personally to come together and brainstorm and get inspired and make new connections and learn about the new tools that will allow us as home technology pros to evolve and meet these challenges. And so I think that not only should CEDIA welcome these products with open arms, but I think it would be negligent of them not to.
Right. And I can't agree more. One of the sentences you have here really stood out to me. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Low cost and DIY focused products are creating an unprecedented level of awareness and excitement about the smart home for end users, builders, and developers. And unprecedented is almost too small of a word. I mean, there is so much awareness of smart home products outside of the CEDIA industry. It almost feels like we're looking at this backwards. Like, I know that we have a large amount of installers and a large amount of CEDIA dealers out there. But to think about how many installs they do per year versus how many Nest thermostats are sold every month, I mean, it's not even a comparison. So I'm all for seeing more collaboration, more people brought to a show. And I like I said, I think CEDIA is a great place for it. I think CES, you get lost in the shuffle. There's Infocom is highly focused on commercial. There's really not another forum to bring all of these different business models together, put them all in one place. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to make control really easy inside of a home. We're trying to do something automated in a home with a dumb device like a thermostat or a light switch. I mean, those are traditionally just stupid devices. And right now we're trying to smarten them up and build in energy savings and all sorts of fun stuff into them. Remote control is just part of it. But I can't think of a better forum to bring everybody together and just, like you said, brainstorm and have those conversations. I mean, that's only good can come from that. There's no bad that can come from that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's definitely a trend that we've been seeing more of over the last couple of years at CEDIA. And I think that clearly it's a trend that we're going to continue to see in 2016. And it's certainly one that I'm eager to watch. I know that that CEDIA, their selection of the Amazon director of Alexa for the smart home, Charlie Kindle, I believe his name was, to give the Friday morning keynote. To me, I kind of cite in my article that I read that as an indication that CEDIA is very unapologetic about the fact that DIY technology is making its way into the show, and I think that they should be unapologetic about that. I think it's their job to include that, and I have to imagine that they're not oblivious to the conversation that's happening, in the corners of our industry. And, don't get me wrong. I don't think that by and large there's a ton of people who are upset about DIY products being there. I think that there are a small handful in the grand scheme of things. And I think the bigger thing, like I think you were alluding to, is that more people are kind of ambivalent about it. It's not that they're upset that DIY products are showing up, but maybe more so the case is that they just aren't thinking super critically about it, or it's just not something they're reading as an indication of a broader trend, but maybe just incidental, I suppose. And so I think it's just I think it's a bigger deal maybe than some people in the industry realize. But again, I think CEDIA is in the right here as far as what their approach to it is. And I'll be interested to see, what I'm able to take away from the show this year to that end.
Very cool. One more CEDIA news story, I guess. They're dropping the term integrator.
Yeah, I read this, and this is something that last year, I believe, I don't remember when it was. It was probably earlier this year that there was kind of a survey going around, and CEDIA was trying to figure out what are we called? What are we going to call ourselves? And I think that I don't know. The term integrator to me was always kind of a mouthful. I used to use it occasionally, and I didn't have a major distaste for it, I guess, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I only used it in the context of talking about our work amongst peers, or if I was doing some writing or something. I never said to my parents or friends or family members, I'm a residential integrator or something. Like systems integrator is a term that people have used. And I just felt like that was confusing and a mouthful, and people never really got it. And so I never had a great term to describe what we do. I still feel like it's a bit of a challenge. Integrator, I feel like, is a term we could probably do well to move away from. But this article talks about calling ourselves technologists, which I've heard before, and people talk about, I'm a residential technologist. And I got to say, I'm not a fan of that term any more than I am of integrator.
No, not at all.
It feels like a miss to me.
Yeah. I think you're just replacing one 3-syllable word with another one. I don't know.
Home Tech Pro has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe a little biased.
Maybe just slightly biased, but yeah, I think Technologist is more than a mouthful. I don't think it's very descriptive either of what we're doing. I think Integrator is a little more on the mark, but like you said, it's tough to you don't go to a networking meeting of real estate agents and say, I'm an integrator in this market. You say, I'm the AV guy.
Yeah. What do you say? I'm curious. Do you say what's your kind of go-to answer?
I think probably saying home technology. I deal with the home technology stuff, the AV system, the security, and they get that. But right. I don't know. I don't think technologist. I think looking for one word to describe what we do and all of the plates we have to juggle when we're building a house. We're not touching just one thing. I mean, we're in central vac. We're with the electrician. We're with the security guy. We're doing the AV work. We're doing the home automation. We're making sure sensors are put in the right spot. I mean, there's not one thing. I've seen some crazy things done in these homes, and there's not one thing that I am afraid of. I mean, there's not a piece that somebody can say, oh, we want to do this crazy lift system where it, we'll lift this 3-inch piece of granite slab with 2 millimeters worth of clearance. And if you have anything on the backside, you're going to scrape up a $300,000 worth of artwork.
Right.
I've done that. So yeah. I'm not afraid of saying, okay, yeah, I can do that. No problem. I've seen just about everything done, and I've made the mistakes. I've fixed the mistakes. I've had to build custom mounts for TVs because the walls weren't framed correctly when we were mounting 800-pound TVs. There's not anything that I have had to I had to completely walk away from and just throw my hands up like that. I'm not sure what we do. I'm not sure Technologist describes it. I'm not sure Integrator describes it. Maybe problem solver. I don't know.
Yeah.
is as close as I can get to it, because we certainly do a lot more than just touch technology. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's true. I typically, my go-to is just kind of, I work in home technology. I just feel like the term technologist to me is just, I don't know, presumptuous. There's just something I don't like about that. I don't know what it is, but I just say I work in home technology, and then I typically don't leave it at that. I'll follow up immediately by saying, so we do things like audiovisual, home theater, lighting control, automated shades. I kind of rattle off 4 or 5 things, and I see people start to get it and understand, and that's typically enough. I don't need to go into a whole big explanation. I think it's important that we have consistency in how we brand our industry. So I totally understand what CEDIA is trying to do here. It makes perfect sense, and I think it is an important conversation. It might seem a little bit philosophical, but in a way, I think that it is important to get a little bit more consistency in how we brand ourselves and start to build a little more awareness around that, because I just don't think there's a great term for what we do right now that people are aware of. So if you're a consumer who's looking to find a company like ours, what is it that you search for? Is it, home automation company? Is it home theater company? Is it security? And I think that it's a hard thing to sort of wrap your arms around for reasons that you alluded to. But I feel like home technology professional is the term to me that encompasses it in the most simple way, and to me the most accurate way as well.
Yeah, you're the TV guy.
Oh man, have you given up? You're resigned to that?
Talk to the security TV guy. He's here somewhere.
Oh, the TV guy. Oh man, I don't know that we'll ever get past that. I think I've kind of resigned myself to it.
Let's change off this and go to some more exciting news. We got a little follow up here on the Amazon Dot. It's coming back, man. Get excited.
Yeah. This is one of these things that I think I'd have to go back and listen, but I feel like when we initially reported it, we did mention that this was something we had seen a story on Reddit, and I think it happens. It's one of these things that people picked up on, and somebody on Reddit claimed that the Echo Dot product from Amazon was being discontinued, and turns out that story is not true. It had been reported, I think, picked up and reported by a couple of people, and so it looked at the time like there might be some truth to it, but I'm glad it's not. I think this looks like a cool product. I don't think I'm going to be running out and buying one tomorrow, but like I said when we originally talked about this story, I just think this is kind of a neat product for somebody who wants that Echo functionality, but maybe doesn't want to pay the extra $100 or whatever it is to have the built-in speaker. This is kind of a cool way to get that functionality and then be able to plug it into an external speaker or AV receiver or something like that. So it looks like, in fact, it is not discontinued, simply sold a lot faster than Amazon anticipated, which doesn't really surprise me. And they will have it back, I believe the story said, in time for the holidays.
Yeah, one would hope. I mean, that's prime time placement. You have to get their products in by Black Friday. So coming up through November here in the States, the day after Thanksgiving is a huge shopping day. They've got to have stock of the product by then, hopefully. But yeah, just sold out faster. They must have not had a way to replace the stock they had, and it'll come back.
And I'm sure they're working very hard, like you said, to get that back into stock before Black Friday, which is really kind of here in the States where the holiday shopping really really kicks off, we've got one last story here that we want to touch on just quickly. Not a whole lot to report here, but this is a story that you and I have touched on once or twice, and I feel like is not getting a ton of coverage in the technology press, particularly in our specific industry, and I feel like it's a significant story, and that is this whole, I would call it a saga that's going on with Unlock the Box. And if you're not familiar, the very quick version is that months back, I believe this started back in February of this year, the FCC came out with a proposal that would have basically required cable companies, I should say, to adhere to some open data standards that would have enabled third parties to develop set-top cable boxes. And the goal of that was to free consumers from having to pay the monthly rental fees to rent a cable box. And I think the gist of that was a good idea in theory, but the cable companies came back pretty quickly and said, well, wait, like, we're not particularly fond of these cable boxes anyways, and what we're really worried about is our copyright protection, and we'd rather keep that intact. And they came up with a counter proposal called Ditch the Box, where it was basically, it would require cable companies with over 1 million subscribers to, produce or adhere to a standard where they would have an HTML5 app that would allow consumers to then use an app that was maybe built into a smart TV or tablet or iPhone or something to stream that content. And so I think that's the better way to go from where I sit. And that's really what we wanted to touch on tonight, is that it increasingly looks like that is the way things are trending in this particular debate. The Unlock the Box proposal is increasingly, there's been a lot of holes poked in that. And recently the majority whip in the House has kind of come to the FCC and said, let's just kill this. It's not, clearly it's a flawed bill. And I personally, I think that's true. Like I said, I think it trending more towards Ditch the Box, to me, seems more in line with where the market is headed anyways, as we speak.
Yeah, I'd agree. One of the things here in the story, and I think I'd heard this before, but I just hadn't put it, in context, is it says Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, Connecticut, got the ball rolling, claiming that consumers were paying on average $231 a year to rent those lousy set-top. I'm paraphrasing here. No, wait, I'm injecting words of my own. Rent those lousy set-top boxes from their cable provider. $231. Just think about that. That's quite a bit. It's quite a bit more than I was thinking. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's some serious amount of money for really, what you get is something you have to have. And the words that really stood out to me was on average. That's the average price, $231 a year. So that means that some people are paying, $400 and $500 a month. Well, some people may be paying a little bit less for, 1 or 2 boxes, but wow, that's a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, it is. And I think that the, I don't know. I don't know what the cable companies are really profiting off of that. I think there are a lot of support costs that are built into them having all of this hardware out there that they have to warranty and fix and whatever.
which is probably why they want to ditch the box.
They would. I mean, that's exactly, and that's what I'm getting at. Is I think that it's easy to, I'm frustrated with cable companies as often and as much as anyone out there. But I think it does get a little bit easy to cast them as the villain, and I think that if you just are purely looking at the amount of money that these cable companies are bringing in on these rental fees, yeah, it probably looks like a really high number, but that doesn't really tell you the whole story. There's a lot of support and just things that you're not accounting for if that's all you're looking at that goes into that equation. And so I think that really the interesting aspect of the story, and it is one that I'm trying to keep a fairly close eye on, is just the idea that, for a long time we've just kind of taken cable boxes for granted, and that's starting to change. We're just seeing so many different over-the-top apps becoming available, and different innovations in the set-top box space with, the more vanilla stuff that we think about, like Apple TV and Roku. And there's just a lot of innovation happening in that space. And I think that without getting political, I do tend to think that this isn't something we need the government to mandate. I think that the market is driving that already, and this whole idea of renting a set-top box from your cable company is going to go away whether the FCC is involved or not. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, until they'll start making you rent the app.
Right.
That's what they do. Yeah. Oh, well, you don't have to pay $25 a month to rent our cable box anymore. You can pay $20 a month to rent our app.
To access the app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's just interesting with the economics kind of shifting there. And, I do think that eventually, not too far out in the future, we're going to be to a point where it's probably going to be a pretty good option for people to simply hang the TV on the wall, get some network to it, whether that's over Wi-Fi or through a hardwired Ethernet connection, and then you're off to the races. And I think that ultimately that's where things are headed. And like I said, it's just a matter of time.
Yep, absolutely agree. Well, Jason, I think we're running up on our time here tonight. I will just want to say that our show notes for this are going to be at HomeTech.fm/123. That's pretty easy to remember, right?
We're getting up there. And so, go check that out. And definitely want to thank our listeners, as always, for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoy the show, find it entertaining or informative, definitely take a moment to tell a friend. Also, a great way that you can support us is by going to HomeTech.fm/support. And on that page, you'll find some more information about becoming a patron of the show, which is a great way that you can help support our efforts financially. You can do that for as little as $1 a month. And we've got a number of people who have been kind enough to take the time and go do that. And we really appreciate it and would encourage others to do so as well.
Absolutely. And if you're not able to support the show, feel free to just drop us some feedback. I mean, that's really helps us, especially these days in the slow days of news here in the summer. That really helps us pick topics. We have people who reach out and suggest stories to us every week, and that's really helpful. And also, just like Kevin did, if you have a question about a remote or something that goes into your smart home, drop us a line. I mean, we're more than happy to help you out and see what we can do. And you can do that at the same place, HomeTech.fm/feedback. Just go there, and there's a little form there. You fill it out, and that's how you get in touch with us.
Absolutely. Well, Seth, we'll let you go. And like I said earlier in the show, next week for me is a definite maybe. We're on pins and needles here at my house and waiting for the arrival of our new baby boy, and we're really excited about that. And so we'll just have to see how things progress. But one way or another, I look forward to recording another episode with you very soon.
Sounds good, man. And if I don't see you next week, I'll see you soon, man.
Sounds good, Seth. Take care.